Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Conor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I would argue a real Republican, meaning that I have real Republican values. I'm going to be watching Mr. Brian Shapiro debating Tim Pool on whether or not Charlie Kirk is a good or a bad guy after he was assassinated, and also Brian Shapiro, quote-unquote, destroying Tim Pool's Trump defense. So Brian Shapiro is apparently a liberal guy who's a part of Unfuck America. That's a political tour that's going on right now. And then not just that, but he runs a successful radio show out of Las Vegas. So I'm curious to see how this content goes. Let's see if Mr. Shapiro is as charismatic, charming, and interesting as the titles would suggest.
The husband, I despise a lot of the things he said. I thought he spread a lot of bad things.
Like what?
Okay, let's start off with Paul Pelosi. Okay, so, and I've watched this video extensively, and listen, he called out what happened to Paul Pelosi, the bludgeoned with a hammer, right? Yes. He said, oh, that was horrible what happened to him. But then with a smile on his face, this was like a day or two after. And by the way, Paul Pelosi almost was killed. Okay, the guy's in jail right now. He said he would call one of his listeners a hero if someone put up the bail for this guy. He said it with a smirk on his face. And let's ask him some questions. He said it with a smile on his face. That would be like me going on the air, which, by the way, I would never do, and say,
Sven Patty says, Conor said, guys, spread this to your friends so I can be more racist. Indeed.
hey, let's raise some money for Tyler Robinson and let's ask him some questions. And if you raise money for Tyler Robinson and get him out of prison on bail, you're a hero. Tim, that is despicable. I am not a Nancy Pelosi fan. I'm not a Paul Pelosi fan. The guy almost died. Okay.
Hans Mayer says the way he pronounces my name is hella racist. Are you sure? Hans? I do think I do throw out a German accent every now and then.
I played the clip. You could play it for yourself. I think it's despicable.
Yeah, we should play it.
Well, and Brian, real quick, I mean, you're saying that you just disagree with things he said, but
sure.
On October 30th, you said he's worse than garbage.
Yeah, I thought Charlie Kirk was garbage. I stand by that statement, and I'll give you reasons
on
why.
July 7th, you said you hated him.
Yeah.
I don't believe you that you just disagreed with things he said. That sounds like
Okay, wait, hold on a second.
I'll happily answer that. I'll defend everything that I've said about.
Now, I'm not going to outright defend every component of what Kirk said, but there is a little bit more context.
Yeah, I know there's context.
Charlie Kirk was saying so this is in the context of not knowing why the attacker did it. The speculation from a lot of people was that there was some illicit activity going on with the Pelosi's.
Which was not true.
It didn't make sense that they didn't have proper security. Who was this weird guy? Charlie Kirk said, bail him out and ask him some questions.
The guy almost died. Now, listen, let me be clear.
Let me give you contemporary context matters.
You could do a 2-hour podcast, and in 99% of that podcast, you can call out what happened to Paul Pelosi. But with a smile on your face, if you call somebody a hero for bailing a guy out who almost killed somebody,
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com.
Like
I'm looking at the New York Times.
I hate that.
I'm looking
It's
at
hard
all
to
these
believe.
places, and
Let's watch the clip. Relax. Good Lord.
there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly?
See, I got to pause real quick.
So right there, and by the way, like, I don't really give a shit. This obviously doesn't mean that Charlie Kirk should have been shot. Just means he's kind of a piece of shit, right? They don't know the details, and yet he's insinuating that Paul Pelosi was in a homosexual relationship with the guy who bashed his head in with a hammer. And he acknowledges the narrative that it's a nudist hemp jewelry maker or whatever who got into their house and bashed Paul Pelosi's skull in. But then he implies that they were in a homosexual relationship. So yeah, I wouldn't, if I was engaged in this level of shit talking, I shit talk Hassan Piker a lot. I think he's a terrible person. I think he's a terrorist apologist. I think he's a fucking asshole. If people pulled up all the clips of the times that I was talking shit about Hassan Piker and then they played that on Twitter after I was assassinated, I would not expect the far left to mourn my passing. Let's put it that way. I don't think that they would think I was a good guy. I think that they would think I was an apologist for American empire. I think they would think I was an apologist for the military-industrial complex. I think that they would think I was an apologist for Israel and for the United States federal government. And to some degree, I am. I think that I criticize these institutions honestly, but I do think that in general, I do defend the existence of the state of Israel. I do defend the existence of the federal government. I do defend the existence and some of the operations of the CIA. I do defend the military-industrial complex. So if you thought that I was a piece of shit for doing that, fair's fair. So what is the context of this debate? Are they trying to moral frog Brian Shapiro for thinking Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit? Can they not see why he would think Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit?
That's not the clip that I was talking about, but yeah, go ahead.
Contemporary, there's more. It's
Gotcha.
another minute.
I got you.
The contemporary context is what's important. We cannot look back after already knowing the details you know and scoff at a comment made at a time when we didn't know.
Okay, but here's what I will say to
And
that.
why is he still in?
Yeah, you can. He's implying that he had a homosexual affair, which is why his skull was cracked open. That's kind of a shitty move, don't you think?
Jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions.
It's not a hero, Tim.
No matter what his bail is, they're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But why is it that in Chicago you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass?
Is that even true? What the fuck is he talking about?
Second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail. This happens all over San Francisco. But if you go after the Pelosi's,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's not
So
true.
the full context is whether he's right or wrong.
He was wrong. Attempted murder, he's wrong.
He's making an argument that in these jurisdictions, they tend to revolving door a lot of these criminals, but not the guy who attacked Paul Pelosi. And he's making 2 points as it pertains to a midterm hero who would bail him out. And that is show Democrats this is what you do, and also ask him questions, because at the time they didn't know if this guy was like buying drugs or
Tim,
something.
I understand what you're saying, but the point that I'm just trying to make here, and I can give you many of other examples, the day after somebody is almost killed with a hammer, you can have a conversation about, well, geez, why are these people not getting bailed out, and why are these people getting bail? To call somebody a hero or a patriot,
A midterm hero.
yeah, he also a patriot, just like, you know,
But I think they'd be a patriot because
ridiculous.
they would be able to ask this guy questions, which
That's not
got
your-
information, which
ask him
then
questions.
affected the
guy-
midterms.
Don't you think it'd be a little bit more prevalent for law enforcement to ask him questions than somebody who bails him out? It's ridiculous.
It's immaterial. I give Charlie Kirk's statement here a D minus.
Okay,
It was,
I appreciate that.
I don't think it was a good thing to say, but I understand the greater context of what he was saying.
It might not emotionally feel like that's a concession, but verbally it is. You know, obviously all the conservatives are trying to sweep as hard as they can. But, you know, Tim's at least saying the right thing, which is this is a shitty statement. I'm going to use the restroom. I'll be right back. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got a membership, if you got them. My parents still should love you. Thank you for being here. Let's go.
Albeit Charlie has had many statements where it's like, Charlie, you could have said that a lot better. If he came out, you shouldn't call someone a hero over this. It was very, very bad. At the time, we were all speculating as to what this actually could have been, because it was weird that the Pelosi's wouldn't have active security.
Did Matt Gaetz or Ted Cruz apologize when they tweeted out that it was some sort of gay, retweeted and tweeted out that it was a gay
Look,
relationship?
if you want to nitpick every time someone posted some silly nonsense,
Let's call it all out. It's wrong. But why don't they
Sure.
apologize for it? Why don't they retract? They never apologize.
because it's a war.
That's not a legitimate excuse.
It's not an
terrorist
excuse.
attack in
It's
New
an
Orleans.
objective fact.
The terrorist attack in New Orleans. We were being told that it was an undocumented
no one's
immigrant.
excusing. The fact of the matter is,
Why can't people apologize?
Two factions are trying to rip each other to shreds, and you're not going to convince people on the right to apologize when the left doesn't apologize either.
I disagree with you.
The left is not going to apologize, bro.
Okay, I can give you many examples of the left.
I can give you
apologizing,
many
including
examples
Joe
of the
Biden.
right apologizing.
When's Donald Trump apologized for something?
Donald Trump?
Yeah. He's the
Singular
leader of
example.
the Republican Party.
Singular. When has Obama apologized for the drone strikes?
Well, that's your opinion.
No,
I'm
the
talking
point
about
is-
comments that you've made and
We can easily pull up instances where the left and the right have apologized for things. As to each other, it is mostly, and this is the funny thing, because I always find myself in these positions where I'm like, yes, the right's not going to apologize, and leftists are like, the right, oh, you are unable to step back from your position and see what's going on. I am telling you, the right is going to say nasty things about the left and never apologize for it, and the left is going to say nasty things about the right and never apologize for it.
Doesn't make it right.
Because indeed, it's not right. It doesn't matter. It's a war. Donald Trump going after Letitia James and Adam Schiff is not because he's like, I want retribution. It's because he's like, I'm at war with these people. He is going after them for I would say, tangible political effects that he wants to obtain. He's not like Adam Schiff's going to suffer. He's going, take Adam Schiff off the chessboard.
Okay, I understand, Tim. I understand what you're saying, but it goes back to my original question, which I disagree with you on. And if you could give me another example, can you name me? And again, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend. I am a compassionate person. What happened to him is terrible. And I want to emphasize that over and over again. And by the way, any Democrat, anybody, I'm not talking about elected official, who has celebrated his death is despicable. And I've called that out on my show constantly. We need to call out political violence on both sides. It does happen on both sides. We had a guy go into a church in Michigan who was a huge Trump supporter who shot up a bunch of people. I'm just making
What was that one?
He went in there. He's a huge, staunch Trump supporter. He went in there and
Why
he
did
shot
he
a bunch
do
of
it?
people. People are saying because he was anti-Christian. It was a Christian hate crime.
This was the Mormon, right?
I don't know what his religion was. I just know that he was a Trump supporter.
Right, but this was a Trump supporter indeed.
Yeah.
He had American flags, but
Sure,
he had it, the attack wasn't political.
But
Yeah. This was the guy had a problem with individuals in the church. And was
Right.
getting, so
Well,
it was,
he was a
it wasn't-
Republican. He was a Trump
That's not
supporter.
political violence.
Okay, well, listen.
But I also don't believe your full-throated condemnation when you said you hate him and you believe he's worse than garbage. I think Osama bin Laden was that, and I celebrated.
Okay, so there's
Why
a
aren't you
difference.
celebrating?
Okay, I hate people that
He hates people. He admitted it. We got you.
He said he hates Charlie Kirk.
I don't hate Tim. I don't hate Tim because we're both two bald white brothers. I actually am enjoying.
AKA Batusai says, my sister-in-law was shot at more than 8 times in a car, and the perpetrator is currently out on bail for a year. What? So you'd have to give me more context, bro. What was is it pending trial? Is he out on bond? Is he was he convicted? Was he not convicted? You know, because there is a difference between, I'm not trying to excuse that. I think if you're accused of a violent crime and there's substantive evidence that you committed that violent crime, then obviously your bond should be revoked. But I'm curious as to the details. Bond is obviously separate from a conviction. So is he on probation or is he out on bail?
This conversation, but even though I've been called retarded, that's okay.
You can't do that. I'm mixed race. You can't. You're oppressing me.
Listen, I'm going to be very clear on this, okay? I hated Charlie Kirk.
I can tell.
Okay, now, it doesn't mean that I wanted him to be murdered. I want to be very clear on that. He was a father. He was a husband. My understanding, he was a good father, right? I hate the constant attacks on brown people, on gay people, on women who get abortions, calling them murderers, which, by the way, he's called time and time again, which I think is absurd. I don't like what he stood for. Now, I give him credit for building what he built with Turning Point USA. Quite an accomplishment, the following that he had. But I'm not going to celebrate his life. I would certainly never.
True. Dying doesn't make you a better person. Okay, that's one of the things that I think is natural. Like there's I think it's a medieval superstition. You don't speak ill of the dead, and I think it's like a judge not lest ye be judged kind of thing. I think it's probably rooted in like Christian principle of judge not lest ye be judged, and the same metric by which you judge other people is the metric by which you will be judged. However, I don't think that there's this like overwrought thing where somebody dies and then you can only highlight all the positive things that they ever did, and you can't really talk shit about the negative things that they did. I just don't think that's true. I think it is what it is. If Andrew Tate died tomorrow, I'd be like, fuck yeah, fuck that guy. Like if he overdosed on cocaine or fent or too many steroids, I don't think we're that lucky. But if he OD'd on drugs, I'd be like, yeah, good. The world's a better place. That guy was a rapist piece of shit, and he was a fucking monster who made national discourse worse. I would say that with my full fucking chest. And if somebody was like, wow, man, you're talking shit about shit about somebody who's dead, I'd be like, yeah, fuck him. You know, his death doesn't make him a better person. So yeah, I think this is just descriptively accurate.
Celebrate his death. I can tell you, I hate Donald Trump.
Look.
I hate everything he stands for. Doesn't mean that I want him to be assassinated, because I don't. What happened to Charlie Kirk?
I don't want Trump to be assassinated, but I might celebrate his death.
Kirk is terrible for the country. It's terrible. It's terrible what happened that day. I know people that were 10 feet away. It's awful. And I was emotional because I'm a human being and I have compassion for people. I can hate what somebody stands for and still have compassion for somebody.
I didn't have compassion for Osama bin Laden.
I'm not. You think I would compare? Hold on a second. That's ridiculous. You think I would compare Charlie Kirk to being a mass murderer and a
Yes, you said
terrorist?
he's worse than garbage.
Okay, saying somebody is worse than garbage is not saying that I think he's a terrorist that's responsible for murdering hundreds of that. That's a ridiculous.
But let's
Dude, worse than garbage is so fucking tepid. I can't even believe this guy is pearl clutching over it.
move a little bit forward because we've had a few minutes left. And
Okay.
You brought up abortion.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your abortion position is.
Oh boy, we're another.
I know it's the hottest subject. You know, it's like the.
I'm sorry for your loss, Kay. Kay lost one of her best friends to a drunk driver who caught 2 years. I am sorry about that. It's fucked up.
So here's my opinion, Tim. Okay, if it was like a 6-month or 4-month thing, I would be okay with that. I think it's reprehensible if there are women out there that are using abortion as birth control. But I don't want to tell
6
a woman.
months.
I don't want to tell a woman what to do with her body. Okay. I don't want the government involved in telling women what to do with their bodies. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant. Yes, I can.
6 months is viable.
Okay, well, maybe 4 months. I'd be okay with that as well. But especially in some states in this country, if you're the victim of incest or rape, you have to be forced to have that child. I find that to be reprehensible. And for the people out there that are so anti-abortion, and I don't call it pro-life, for the people out there that are anti-abortion, I ask you this question. How many people have you adopted? How many children have you
A
adopted?
lot, actually.
Okay, well, I know a lot of people that have not. And there are hundreds of thousands of kids right now, Tim, that are waiting to be adopted. Okay? If abortion is illegal across the country, what are we going to do with all those kids?
It's a responsibility thing too, though.
But this is hold on. This is not a real argument. This is like.
You think abortion's murder?
Well, so if we can adopt every kid,
hold
can we ban abortion?
on. The adoption thing is a meme. I think it's like a generality that's not correct. I think the highest rates of adoption are among pro-life religious families, like the Coney Bear.
Evangelicals, Catholics.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And this is not a real argument by the numbers.
And also, if we were to have every child adopted, can we then ban abortion?
Listen, if you want to have
Oh, yeah, how
100,
about that?
if you want to have 100 kids, Tim, wearing beanies, you're allowed to do that. And I would say have as many children as you like. But I don't like telling other people what to do. You can vote for you.
Yeah, this is where liberalism loses me. You guys say, oh, Conor, you're just a liberal. You're just a liberal. You're just a liberal. I have no problems telling other people what to do if they're doing something fucked up.
You can have an abortion. Listen, it's a very difficult thing for any woman to choose to do so. But I don't want to tell, just like I didn't want people to be forced to get the jab.
Abortion as contraception, you think should be allowed. Not good, but legal.
I think that's reprehensible. I'd also be okay with, limiting how many abortions somebody could have. Obviously, if somebody has 5 abortions,
We got a problem.
yeah, exactly.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast.
Hold on. So let's draw this out, okay? I would actually be curious how chat would react to this. So what pro-life people, abortion and the miracle of life occurs in stages, okay? And I think that somebody was arguing that there's developmental stages that are more complex than this. But let's say we got the egg and we got the sperm, okay? The sperm has fertilized the egg. Now, the argument from pro-life people is that pro-life, all of this is protected as a potential human being with moral worth. Or, I mean, not even potential. I don't even think they would put potential. I think they would just say it's a human being with moral worth. So, and oftentimes I hear that once an egg is fertilized, it actually has like a unique genetic signature. And as a result of that unique genetic signature, it should be protected because it has become an individual. All right, that is the pro-life argument. But I would argue that an egg and a sperm, a fertilized egg, probably doesn't have sentience. And then I think there's a stage in here where it's a zygote, effectively, and it might have the beginnings of arms, legs, hearts, brain, all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't have the capacity because the central nervous system is not fully developed. It doesn't have the capacity for pain. And there's probably an intermediate part. There's an intermediate step in here. All right. And then, sorry if my baby drawings are silly, but we are going to get some babies. Babies! So, boom. Sorry, I'm just drawing babies. Babies. Okay. And let's assume that this is all like in utero, okay? So and then what I would say is abortion extremists, in my opinion, say, oh, sorry, 1 second. Let me get here. Boom. I would say pro-choice extremists say that no matter the stage of development, the woman is of greater moral consideration and therefore can do as she pleases with the fetus. All right. I would say that pro-choice extremists say that, and then therefore they argue that you could do an abortion at any stage of development for any reason. And we've actually legislated that, okay? My abortion centrism, which nobody seems to like, and I'll draw it probably here, I suppose, abortion centrist. My abortion centrism is that once a capacity for pain / proto consciousness is formed, that should be protected as a new human life, and the potential human life also has moral worth, but that should be cultural, not legal. And I'll explain that momentarily. So hold on. So this is where I'm accusing, no offense to anybody who shares the opinion with Mr. Shapiro, but with Mr. Shapiro, in my opinion, he's kind of like a moral coward, because he's saying like, oh, well, it's not for me to decide. And it's like, okay, well, do you think murder is bad? And it's like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, then obviously, like, you do decide some moral decisions. So why should you not contemplate and come to a moral conclusion about abortion? Is it because it's complex? Is it because you don't have a uterus? Are you not able to talk about murder because you haven't killed somebody before? Are you not able to talk about theft because you haven't, stolen before? I think that's very silly. Like it's a very silly and lazy, in my opinion, moral argument to be like, oh, well, I don't have a uterus, therefore I can't have an opinion. I think that's pretty fucking stupid. But anyways, so this is where I would say I'm an abortion centrist. If a fertilized egg is aborted or miscarried, do I think that is going to be like the most like morally weighted decision that's ever existed ever? Probably not, right? It's probably, we have all sorts of murder, genocide, rape, slaughter, theft, disease, death. We have all sorts of fucked up shit. So I think if like a fertilized egg gets either aborted or, aborted or miscarried, then that's not going to do anything. But there's something in here where at the prototypical, I think it's around 18 weeks, somebody was saying that this entire situation is more nuanced than I give it credit for. But listen, I'm just trying to give you my hip shot analysis. When there is a frontal lobe that is capable of proto-consciousness, and there is a central nervous system capable of feeling pain, obviously like a fetus doesn't have memory, but I think that at that point, it's worthy of moral consideration as a living being. And then especially as you get into later stages of development, these things, if it can survive outside of the womb, once you hit that 22-week threshold, in my opinion, that's a baby. And that's like deserving of legal and moral protection, especially if there isn't rape, incest, or horrible genetic defect or horrible health outcomes for the mother or for the baby. Then at that point, I think it's worthy of moral protection and moral and legal protection. And then not just that, even with rape and incest, I don't know if I would make a rape or incest exception past the point of viability. I think once you hit 22 weeks, that's a different person. And even if they're the product of rape or incest, I think at 22 weeks, once they are viable, you just got to go to term. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna check in with chat and see what their thing is. Conor solves the abortion issue. That's what we'll call this one. Conor solves the abortion issue. Let me see what you guys said. Purple Flex Thieves says, dehumanizing language, it always leads to violence in the end. Calling people trash suggests there cannot be any redemption. Maybe you could call them recycling. It's funny, and I'm tired of pretending it's not true. It's just obvious says, I don't like telling people what to do. Okay, no laws then. I know, right? What a pussy, right? Christian Blair says, I'm good with 18 to 20 weeks, probably. Okay. Ryan Pell says, not going to lie, Conor streaming when he does is perfect for me in my office days, based. Kyle says, pro-choice is better than pro-life. Well, I would say the pro-choice extremists that say that you can have an elective abortion at any stage of development without any health complications related to the mother. Like, obviously, pregnancy is intense. Obviously, just having a pregnancy is a biological, physical risk in and of itself. But if there is a, by all accounts, healthy pregnancy, I don't think that elective abortion up to delivery is a sane position. I think that's infanticide. I think that's just killing a baby, which kind of makes you a piece of shit. People who are against authority and principle are truly liberal. It's so anti-human. True. Unique genetic argument. Sorry. I'm getting tongue-tied. Unique genetic signature is our sort of argumentation. I mean, I agree. I'm just saying that that's an argument. Mr. Batusui, Batusai, aka Batusai, says it's like a train on track that's going to go up to a final location that needs stops and resupplies. Sure. Purple Flex says, if you had a religious perspective, you might call it an incarnating of the soul. Yeah. Yep. And that might actually be part of the religious component, which I think is not really provable. The religious component would be that the second that you have a fertilized egg, the bioelectrical energy that is within there, that's where the soul is, breathed in. And I think that in the Old Testament and in Islam, they talk about like the breath, or they talk about a certain amount of weeks. I forget what the fuck they talk about, but Fast and Bulba says, I'll skip commenting on the subject because I know for a fact my opinions wouldn't be welcome. Well, thank you for being conscientious of me getting triggered. Evan says, consciousness supposedly happens around 20 to 22 weeks. Most abortions, 92 to 93% are done at 13 weeks, and 99% are done by 21 weeks. I'm an 18 to 20 week kind of guy. Cool. Scrolling through, nobody's really spurging out or giving me this. Counterpoints is top 5. Excellent. I don't really think that I'm seeing a lot of pushback. I'm not seeing a lot of pushback, which I guess is good. Anonymous chatter says, what do you think the timeline is for abortion for genetic defects? I think 9 months is too late for those. I think it as a parent sparing their child suffering. See, anonymous chatter, that's like where we're, of course, going to have to evaluate it. So, for instance, like Down syndrome kids, I think Sweden or Norway, I forget who it is, but there's some Nordic country that has eliminated Down syndrome because they tested for it and they eliminated Down syndrome from their population through eugenics. What's interesting about that is Down syndrome people, I'm pretty sure, are like some of the happiest human beings alive. Let's take it. Let's see if there's any happiness. Down syndrome happiness statistics. Studies show a high level of happiness among individuals with Down syndrome, with nearly 99% reported they are happy with their lives in one survey. It is a misconception that people with Down syndrome are always happy. They experience a full range of emotions like anyone else, but they often report high life satisfaction and a positive outlook on life. Their happiness is influenced by factors like environment, health, and relationships, not just genetics. So I don't think like we should just be like, oh, you got Down syndrome, abortion, lol. Like, no, like Down syndrome people are cool and they're happy and they're probably having more fun than us. I hate to use such like a vulgar argument in such a serious topic, but have you ever seen the Shane Gillis stand-up bit about people with Down syndrome, where he's like, you can always tell who's been around people with Down syndrome because they're always wondering if there's something wrong with them, and they're like, oh, are they okay? And then Shane Gillis's response is like, yeah, they're doing great. As a matter of fact, they're doing better than anybody else I know. All of us are addicted to ADD medication and anti-anxiety meds, whereas people who have Down syndrome are addicted to Capri Suns. They're pretty much the only people I know who are having a good time. That's brilliant. Like, dude, if they don't have consciousness, if it's before, the 18 to 20 week level that we're talking about, then maybe I think it could be like legally permissible. However, I think it would be morally impermissible once you get past the central nervous system, prefrontal cortex development stage. And then I don't know if Down syndrome is enough to abort. Now, Tay-Sachs, on the other hand, Tay-Sachs disease. I'm pretty sure Tay-Sachs is a rare inherited genetic disorder that affects the brain and nervous system. It causes a mutation in the hexa gene, which leads to the accumulation of a fatty substance called GM2. They have developmental delays, seizures, loss of muscle control, blindness, deafness, cherry red spots on the retinas, difficulty swallowing. And so for Tay-Sachs, if you found out that a baby had Tay-Sachs before they were basically going to be like a vegetable their entire life, like a suffering vegetable their entire life, and you got to it before 22 weeks or whatever, or 18 to 20 weeks, that I think is morally defensible. So anyways, nobody likes killing kids except for some freaks amongst us. But yeah, like I think we could evaluate genetic disorders is what I'm saying. I can roll R's now, base. Andre says, sorry, I'm just going to respond to you guys real quick before we move into the next breakdown. Andre says, in the EU, we have elective abortion up until 3 months and health-related until 6, then up to delivery for life and death scenarios. I think that's probably good because 3 months is 4 weeks in a month, so that's 12 weeks for elective, which is even stricter than I want. Health-related up until 6 months, 6 times 4 is 24. And then delivery for life and death scenarios. That actually seems incredibly centrist. MG says rape or incest shouldn't matter either. It's a human being worthy of protection or not. The baby never raped or rucked its relative. Lol. As I said before, somewhere in the middle, I feel the cutoff point. Okay, well, tell me if you want to do it more early. Kay says, but well, hold on, sorry. Can't you just allow doctors and women to make that decision? In Canada, it's legal and it's still exceedingly rare with less than 20 a year on average. What, for late term elective? No, I'm not gonna permit late term elective. Kay says, and because it's legal, we don't end up with moms dying by accidents. Anyways, just my opinion. So I know this is a sensitive topic, so I'll probably just move on just because I know that people are going to get sensitive about it. But what I would say is, if the fetus is viable and if the mother is having an otherwise healthy pregnancy and we're past the seat of consciousness / development of the central nervous system, I think that should be illegal because I would view that as infanticide. So no, I don't want to leave that just legal and up to the mother if that's your thing. Fast and Bulba says they're not happy. That's just the way they look. God, I hate you. Oh, really? That's funny. That's funny. A lot of Down syndrome people get depression once they get older. At most don't get old though. Okay, well, still. Where did you get the grilled cheese from, Uncle Danny? Exactly. Anonymous Chatter says, I was talking more about the hyperglycemia vera that my nephew had. He had consciousness but suffered seizures constantly until death at 2 weeks was a year ago. I think sparing him that. Yeah. Yep. I'm with you there. But we shouldn't. Neurotypical people shouldn't be able to determine whether or not neurodivergent people get to exist or not. That's Nazi shit. Well, then, Harmonic, I actually have a question for you. And I get that it's getting sensitive, so we will move on momentarily. How do you feel about CRISPR? So, for instance, let's say that you could gene edit a baby, and there were genetic predisposing factors for autism or Down syndrome or anything like that, or Tay-Sachs, or that issue with seizures. What would you say to gene editing a fetus? Because the fetus isn't going to know the difference. The fetus would just have changed genetics, and then it would function. It would function the way that it was designed to. I'm pretty like pro CRISPR. I'm pretty pro CRISPR. So mostly because I want to design Space Marines, but it is what it is. Conservative liberalism says not allowing incest exception seems wild. A father who had been raping his daughter and she finally hits puberty, producing a child, shouldn't be forced to carry that at such a young age. Conservative liberalism, I understand you, but I think it's a moral balance. If you're talking about 22 weeks with viability and the seat of consciousness and central nervous system development, if the fetus is healthy, the fetus didn't commit the crime of incest. The fetus is innocent. And at that point, in my opinion, it's a baby. Conor, imagine if we allowed abortions, we wouldn't have Shane Gillis. Exactly. All right. Anyways, let's move into the next one. But Grassroots says, knew a guy who had 7 DUIs and was out the next day until he killed 2 people. Sorry for your loss. Yep. DUIs are not funny. They're not cool. All right, let's move into the next little bit. This is going to be Brian Shapiro destroys Tim Pool's Trump defense. I'm going to be curious about this because I feel like, in my opinion, Tim has worn out his welcome, in my opinion, with the whole, like, I'm a liberal, but he's exhausted that argument. He's a Trump devotion syndrome sufferer. So if Brian Shapiro, a libcuck, is going to call him out to his face, I am down to see how that works.
We're both two bald white brothers. I actually am enjoying this conversation, but even though I've been called retarded, that's okay.
You can't do that. I'm mixed race. You can't. You're oppressing me. For the same reason that people probably support Obama murdering children. The issue is
about Kamala. Name me one thing that Kamala Harris has done in her life.
Let's slow down and say.
Wait, what? Who?
You can't do that. I'm mixed race. You can't. You're oppressing me. For the same reason that people probably support Obama murdering children.
Is he talking about Anwar al-Awlaki's son and or the drone program? Like Donald Trump isn't fucking drone striking Caribbean boats right now as we speak. Like Donald Trump in his first term wasn't drone striking the fuck out of Middle East, North Africa. God, dude. All right, let's not get triggered.
The issue about Kamala. Name me one thing that Kamala Harris has done in her life.
Let's slow down and say the issue at hand is. We always call this the lesser of two evils. And we could take a look at Donald Trump being slovenly and perverted and whatever you want to call him.
A pedophile? Somebody who raped 14 to 17-year-old girls in the 80s, 90s, and thousands and or slashed $10 billion out of the budget that is projected to kill between 3 and 14 million people over the next 5 years? We could do that, Tim. We could do that.
And these are bad things. And I'm like, wow, this is why I didn't vote for him in 2016. And then you can take a look at what else you're up against. And you've got Joe Biden, warmongering crony who sold out this country to his brother for Iraqi contracts and
so rich right now, considering that Trump is selling international influence via meme coins and has doubled his net worth via crypto. Dude. The hypocrisy. And by the way, like I'm perfectly fine. You guys know me. I don't like Hunter Biden. I don't like the nepotism. I don't like the cronyism. I don't like the corruption. You guys know me. I'm like Hunter Biden's biggest critic. But you think that, dude, I'm happy I wasn't here for this debate. If Tim Pool brought up the Biden crime family in front of me, I don't even know if I'd be able to argue. I might actually just have a stroke and die on Timcast.
Of the big guy, and the list goes on. You can take a look at the extension of the Obama administration, where Obama killed tons of children. He has the record for most children murdered by a Nobel Peace Prize holder, and most notably was the extrajudicial assassinations of Anwar al-Awlaki and Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. Now,
And fuck Anwar al-Awlaki and fucked Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, okay? So number one, Anwar al-Awlaki was an American imam who I think he immigrated here from somewhere in the Middle East, North Africa, but I think he was a citizen. And he originally was like a pacifistic preacher in reference to 9/11. But after the invasion of Iraq, he actually became a propagandist for Al-Qaeda. And then he was killed in an American drone strike. And then his son, who I think was like 15 or 16 at the time, was running around with his Al-Qaeda bros looking for his dad. And the drone strike that killed Anwar al-Awlaki's son was targeting another jihadist terrorist. So for me, yeah, kids dying, fucking sucks, okay? Part of war, it happens, it fucking sucks. Not denying that. But what I'm saying is, if we're going to rob this conversation of all context, like showing that these people were active participants in terrorist organizations, you're not actually bringing up this talking point because you care about due process for citizens. If I talk to this motherfucker about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, is Tim suddenly going to become super concerned about due process? Is he going to be like, oh, damn, oh my God, they violated his due process rights? Or is he going to start sweeping for the Trump admin? I guarantee you he's going to start sweeping for the Trump admin. So this shit just, number one, it's going to give me a stroke. Number two, it just doesn't land for me.
you can make the arguments about Anwar al-Awlaki being a jihadi, but he was an American, and we have due process. But then you get Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, who was a 16-year-old American citizen, who was at a civilian restaurant in Yemen, and Obama blew him up. And when Obama was asked about it, he said, oops, oops. And so they come to me and say, Trump's a pig.
Because they were targeting an adult Al-Qaeda member who Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki was hanging out with. So he was collateral damage to a drone strike.
And I'm like, yeah, you got that right.
So first of all,
and then I've got to choose.
Does Tim Pool only care about American citizens who are killed by drones, or does he also care about like Afghan and Syrian and Iraqi civilians killed by drones?
I'm voting for on this one, and I'm going to tell you, you know what? They all suck.
Well, Trump didn't run against Barack Obama, and I didn't vote for Barack
but
Obama.
Biden,
I'm not here to.
It's just Avi for $5 says, you ever considered talking about geopolitics as a segment or for stream? What's your thoughts on the ramp up in Venezuela or the Argentinian bailout? Yeah, we used to do geopolitics all the time. And what I mean by that is we would have a conversation about this. I would bust open Google Maps and I would go on 20-minute extemporaneous rants about various geopolitical current events and history. So yeah, I think the news just has to go towards geopolitical shit. So yes, but not right now.
Defend Barack
No,
Obama.
I'm talking about Joe
Donald
Biden.
Trump because you support Donald Trump.
Indeed. And
you're
I talk
okay
about
with supporting a pig who probably sexually abused a lot of people, who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein.
Come on, man. Arigato gozaimasu. Akimashite. AKA Wadusai. Bro, the Republicans are free market. I don't think they care if Russia pays Tim to say the same shit he's already saying. So hold up. So why the fuck does Rob Knorr care if I work for PV as a never Trump Republican? Pretty clearly, he does care, right? So I don't believe that shit for a second. Number two, why would they care about the cronyism of Hunter Biden lobbying for foreign organizations like Chinese and Ukrainian energy companies? Isn't that part of the free market? Isn't it just lobbying? Isn't it something that Hunter Biden, perceivably could be interested in just through natural interest? Maybe Hunter Biden just really loves energy. Maybe he just really loves natural gas. Maybe he just loves it. And it's his God-given right as a free American to express his interest in Ukrainian and Chinese natural gas. If that argument was true, nobody should, if what you said was true, nobody should give a fuck about Hunter Biden at all, ever. And nobody should care about Russian or Chinese psychological operations. That is, aka Badasui. Arigato gozaimasu. Akimashite. Chisai chin chin. AKA Batusui. Batusai. That's a crazy fucking sentence. You just triggered the fuck out of me.
He was best friends.
Now you're making things up.
Found liable in a court of law for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. His own
wanna
wife.
play this game?
His own wife.
You don't want
It's
to
not
play
a game.
You don't
It's not a
know. You
game.
don't know the facts of the case.
Okay, well, let's talk about the 24,
let's go.
25 other women.
No, let's do the E. Jean Carroll thing.
Okay, so Barack
Oh, hold on. Let's talk about the 24 or 25 other women. No. Let's talk about E. Jean Carroll specifically. Interesting.
Tell me
Obama's.
what happened.
So
Tell
hold on.
tell
Barack
me what happened.
Obama's. I will.
No,
Hold on.
you brought it up. Don't bring
Barack
up
Obama is a murderer, and yet he was never convicted. It never was shown in a court of law. Nothing ever proven. But you can make blatant statements, Tim.
I'm not retarded.
That Barack. Oh, I'm not retarded either. Okay, I'm a pretty
When a
smart
court
guy.
of law says a thing is true, that doesn't mean it's true.
Gotcha. So
It means it's more likely to be true. Neonick says, are you saying your morality says that Steven isn't making the best decisions he could, or are you saying he's making morally bad decisions and he is morally permissible realm for you? I think he's making morally bad decisions, but I think I've criticized him multiple times openly about those morally bad decisions. But my morality extends past legality. So for instance, like, if you're 15 to 25 years old and you're growing up and you're a little promiscuous when you're young, like if you date around, if you hook up with a few people or whatever, I'm not going to like come out of church and be like, you know, you're 19 years old and you've slept with 3 people. You're a piece of shit and you're going to hell. Like that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, hey man, sowing your wild oats can be fun, but realistically, you're going to pay a lot of social consequences for sowing your wild oats and you need to be careful. And you should not sleep with anybody with whom you are not prepared to have a child. Because there are not a whole bunch, but there's at least a few people that I know who had children with the wrong people, and their lives are drastically different as a result. I think that's the nicest way to put it. So I also think that 40-year-old men, this would extend to like Leonardo DiCaprio as well. I think that if you're dating somebody 18 to 25, I think you're kind of banking on the fact that they're socially underdeveloped. Now, are they adults? Yeah. Are they physically developed? Yeah. But are they immature as fuck and probably just learning the ropes about the world? Yeah. And so is it criticizable to sleep with people that age when you're substantively older? I think it's criticizable. Am I going to call law enforcement on you? Obviously not. Like, I don't give a shit. And on top of that, what I would do is I would turn around and I would victim blame the 18-year-old. And I'd be like, why are you having sex with a 50-year-old? What's wrong with you? Like, did your dad not give you enough hugs? What the fuck? You know? So anyways.
unproven in a court of law, but Barack Obama's a murderer, and you're totally
Barack
okay saying
Obama
that.
is
But Donald Trump never
definitively-
sexually abused anybody, even though liably found guilty in a court of law.
Let's slow down a minute. See, this
I'm
is
just asking you.
This is the issue with liberals. You don't know.
I'm not a liberal. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm a
Anti-Trump.
registered independent. You just called me a liberal. Let's be factually
left and
accurate,
right.
Tim.
The left.
Okay, I'm not the left.
You don't know
I
the
didn't vote
facts.
for Obama. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton.
You are left.
Okay, well, you can say that, and I can
Sure.
call you a hard MAGA right, but it doesn't
You
mean
can
that
call
you're
me
right.
that too. But there's clearly distinct
what?
factions in the culture war, and there's a left and a right, which defines the overall.
I don't like sexual abusers. I would never vote for
Me neither.
somebody like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Well, you did.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so Donald Trump never sexually abused anybody.
Tell me
the
the- tell me-
25 women lied. His own ex-wife in court
that true?
documents
Was
in a
it-
deposition. She under oath, his ex-wife said that.
Do I speak Japanese? No. I said, arigato gozaimasu, which is thank you, which you should know. That you thank the cabbies when they're driving you around. I said akimashite, which I think I'm mispronouncing, by the way. It's so annoying. It's something that I actually hate about the Japanese, by the way. Akimashite, Japanese greeting. Akimashite! Akimashite! Happy New Year? No. No, that's not it. There's something. I think it's a greeting. Akimashite says to begin, to dawn. I don't know. Anyways, whenever you walk into a store and the retail clerks are Japanese women, they say something like that. Somebody can correct me in chat, but they go, akimashite. And it's so annoying and it's so shrill. But it's a very common word that's said. So, arigato gozaimasu is thank you. Akimashite is some kind of greeting, although I'm probably mispronouncing it and misspelling it in my Google search. And then Chisai Chin Chin. Chisai Chin Chin, Japanese meaning. I was told it was suck my piece. Chisai Chin Chin is small penis. Oh, that's what it means. It means you have a small penis. Nice. Homeless people and Marines used to yell Chisai Chin Chin at each other. That's pretty funny. I thought I was saying suck my wang, but I was really saying you have a small wang. So, arigatou gozaimasu, akimashite, chisai chin chin, aka batusai.
He raped her.
You know your issue.
He went into teenage girls' locker rooms without their
bad
permission.
Things. Yeah, bad things.
Oh, that's just bad.
Those are real bad. Those are real bad.
Locking the keys in my car is a bad thing. That's despicable.
So tell me the case.
You have a daughter. Well, hold on a second. I just talked about going into
you don't know what you're talking about.
I don't?
You don't.
Donald Trump bragged about it on the Howard Stern show. Which case? E. Jean Carroll?
E. Jean Carroll.
So you want to go through the case.
You said proven in a court case. I said, tell me about it.
The jury found him liable.
You can't.
The jury found him liable.
You can't.
The jury did. They found him liable.
Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. If you keep making non sequiturs,
it's not a non sequitur.
It is, because I asked you a question. You've ignored it.
I haven't ignored it.
What was the case?
I don't. So here's what I know about the.
Maybe that was it. Sorry, I want to find out this this annoying Arisha Shaimase meaning. Welcome. Maybe. I thought they were saying akimashite, but I could be wrong. It's just a thing that the staff yells when customers enter their store, whether they can see you or not. The bell. Yeah. Okay, so this is probably it. Sorry, just yelling Japanese.
The case. Okay, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Unlike Barack Obama, which you had mentioned, he's a murderer. You don't want to talk about the fact that that's never been proven in a court of law. But you're
what does that have to do with what I asked you? Tell me about the E. Jean Carroll case.
Because a jury found him liable for sexual abuse. I don't have to know everything about the case.
No, you just believe what
present it to you.
Oh, maybe that's it.
I believe in our justice system.
Let's do this.
I believe in our justice system.
Here's how I operate. I will hear a claim and I will fact check it.
Sure.
And try and dig through the facts to see if there's merit. You will believe what you're told.
So everything on the right when it comes to Donald Trump, there's no merit to it, even though he's a convicted 34-count felon. But
not.
those are made up.
And
then you don't even know the crime.
I don't have to know the crime
Yes,
to
you
know
do.
that a jury found him guilty in a court of law. You can disagree with the outcome.
do.
I disagree with the OJ.
Nelson Mandela was a criminal too. He got locked up.
Hey, sometimes the
Nelson Mandela was a criminal. He was a part of a what is it, like a banned illegal political organization in South Africa. Legal and moral don't mean the same thing, which I think is part of Tim's point, by the way.
justice system gets it wrong. I think we could agree on that.
So if you
not
don't,
my type is a better defense than the glove doesn't fit, I think.
I think the question, you know what? We can just pause right here and say to everybody who's listening, I think my point is I can tell you the facts of these cases and why I have doubts, and you don't know anything about them.
So here's a fact. Donald Trump is a 34-count felon. You can disagree with it, but, well, you can say incorrect till the cows come home. He wasn't sentenced, but he was convicted on 34 felony counts. Now, you can disagree with that. Okay, you can disagree with
Name the crime.
That's fine.
Name the crime.
Wasn't it fraudulent business transactions?
You don't have to name the crime.
Yes,
He's
you
a
do.
34-count felon.
You have to name the crime.
Okay, well, listen.
So again, I will say it to the audience. He doesn't even know what the charge was. He doesn't know who was accused of falsifying what.
I named you a few. I don't have all 34 charges in front of me, but it doesn't, just because.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're redundant charges anyways. I'm pretty sure they're all the same thing. It's all like falsifying business records in the furtherance of an election.
I can't name the
Wouldn't
charges.
it be prudent of you to actually investigate these things before parroting them to a large audience?
I'm not parroting them. All I'm simply
You can't
saying,
even explain what your position is.
Just because, okay, here's
What did
my,
Trump? Okay, let me try this. Let's slow down. Why?
I'm going to say, listen, man, I'm going to say this is part of the reason why Steven is a good debater. This is part of the reason why I consider myself not good, but above average, is because if you are going to run, if you're going to have a public platform, you absolutely should have a command of the facts. And so when it comes to E. Jean Carroll, okay, the accusation is that E. Jean Carroll was in some fancy department store. Donald Trump was there. He walked up, he flirted with her, whatever. She went into a changing room. Donald Trump followed her in and then allegedly digitally penetrated her without her consent. I think that's the E. Jean Carroll allegation. And then what happened was, 20, 30 years later, whatever, she sues him for this, especially when he's getting into politics. So the accusation is, oh, well, you've had all these years to sue me, but you didn't do it until I was politically viable. This is politically motivated. But what ended up happening during the lawsuit was they played the Trump, you can do whatever you want, you can grab them by the wussy thing. They also played Donald Trump's own deposition where he was just like ad hocking and talking about how like women, if you're rich or powerful, they want to hook up with you anyways. And overall, I think in a civil case, you only need a preponderance of evidence, which is like 51-49, 51% 49. So you only have to say that this thing probably happened. And so Donald Trump was found civilly liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll, and she got like a multi-million dollar lawsuit. And I think she won partly on defamation as well, because he said that like, oh, this chick's crazy. But then they showed evidence for how they would have been within proximity to each other, running in the same social circles, running in this social circle, et cetera, et cetera. So I think E. Jean Carroll won, a lot of money off of defamation and alleged sexual assault. Now, when it comes to the 34 count felonies, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Trump the Trump business would often doctor business transactions in order to conceal stuff. And one of the things that they did is they concealed the payments to Stormy Daniels. So Stormy Daniels is a pornographic actress who allegedly had sex with Donald Trump in 2004 when his wife was pregnant. And Donald Trump didn't want to settle with her at all. He was actually hoping that he would be able to make it through the election without paying her a dime. But when the Hollywood Access tape dropped, where he was talking about grabbing women by the wussy, then he was like, okay, I probably need to pay her off, because if this hits right after the Hollywood tape, my election's done. And so what he did is he got, I think Cohen was his old lawyer. He got Cohen to buy the story from a tabloid, which in turn, I think, paid Stormy Daniels. And they used a whole bunch of like convoluted financial measures with which to buy the story. But that was technically a violation of a New York election law, where if you put in false business transactions in order to help actually, I think it's two separate laws. One of them is entering in a false business transaction, which I think is a misdemeanor. Then there's a felony enhancement where if you engage in any illegal behavior that helps somebody during an election campaign, then it becomes a felony enhancement. And so they use the felony enhancement in order to extend the statute of limitations. And then they did successfully convict Donald Trump of 34 fraudulent business transactions in the furtherance of his election campaign. And so that's like the whole story. So the story is that if it wasn't Donald Trump, if it wasn't a presidential election, if people didn't hate Trump so much, then the state level prosecutors would have never brought this case. But that has nothing to do with whether or not Trump is actually guilty of the crime. And then same thing with E. Jean Carroll. You can say, oh, well, E. Jean Carroll didn't have any physical evidence. She just had her testimony and some notes from some random therapist. Therefore, in a court of law, there's no way this ever would have been substantiated. And the jury was already biased to hate Donald Trump anyways, which is why we reached this verdict. Okay, that could still be true. But then when you add in, I don't know, 40 sworn written affidavits as a part of the Epstein case that are still currently barred, when we add in him being a friend of Jeffrey Epstein through the 80s, 90s, and the early thousands, when we add in the 2003 birthday letter, when we add in somebody's going to have to remind me of the name, but there's a YouTube video that you can watch of a specific woman who's a part of the Epstein case who effectively said like, oh yeah, I was 14 years old. I was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to New York, and I had, sex and blowjobs with Donald Trump and was raped by Donald Trump this time, and this time. And she's pretty graphic about the details. And so if there's that much smoke, how is there not fire? And so that's where, for me, like, Steven said the other day, like, nobody cares about the Epstein files. I still care about the Epstein files. I still care that Donald Trump is the spiritual leader of the Republican Party, and yet he's an ephebophilic rapist. I care about it. Nobody else has to care about it. I'll care about it. Anyways, I'm gonna play this while I'm. Excuse me. I'm gonna play this while I check out you guys' chats.
What do you think Trump did wrong in that case?
He falsified. Well, if we're talking about E. Jean Carroll, he probably digitally penetrated a woman without her consent. And then if you're talking about the felony cases, he falsified business records in order to pay off a porn star in the furtherance of his election.
You're talking about E. Jean Carroll, or are you talking about
the business records case? What did he do wrong?
Well, falsifying business records was what he was charged with.
No, what specifically did he do wrong?
What specific?
What do you take
falsifying
issue
records? Falsifying records.
Which records? I'm asking you the specifics of what did you find that he did wrong?
Here's my point.
You don't have an answer for it?
I'm going to answer it for you.
Are you gonna give me a specific example, or are you gonna change the subject again?
I'm not changing the subject. We're talking about this.
So what did Trump do wrong? Say Trump did thing. Tell me.
Okay. Here's the answer that I'm going to give you. I don't know all the ins and outs of this case.
Well, then why are we talking?
Here's what I do know. Regardless of what your opinions are on the case, and
Kyle says E. Jean Carroll also had the dress with Trump's DNA on it. Trump refused a DNA test. Whoa. I did not know that.
what you might think are valid that he didn't do anything wrong, what you might think are valid that he never sexually abused.
Neonic says, why do religious philosophical principles hold more weight than Rawlsian constructed ones? Probably because they're more popular. I know that's not going to be a satisfying answer for you, but they're more popular.
A woman. Here's the bottom line, whether you like it or not. A jury found him guilty on 34 counts that you obviously disagree with. Whether I know the ins and outs of the case is irrelevant.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is that he is a 34-count felon. The fact of the matter is that he's a liable sexual abuser. Liable.
Actually, in order, so this is actually legally distinct to be.
He wasn't sentenced. I understand.
Therefore, he's not a felon.
I understand that.
There has to be the final.
I understand.
Right, so he's not a felon.
I've said that multiple times.
So we agree he's not a felon.
Okay. The reason why he wasn't sentenced is because he won the presidency.
Well, it's under appeal, actually, and it's been over a year since the appellate court was prepared to issue their ruling.
I'll tell you what,
done it.
If he wins his appeal, I will come on this show and I will say, Tim, I was wrong.
Well, no,
right.
Hold on. We agree, though. He's not yet a felon until he's sentenced.
He wasn't sentenced. I've said that multiple. I've said that multiple.
I don't even think that's true. So now is Tim lying? Because once you're convicted, you're convicted. I don't think the sentencing has anything to do with whether or not you were convicted. So that just feels like a lie.
Times. A jury convicted him on 34 felony counts.
Of what?
Again, there you go back again, trying to quiz me on what the.
Okay, here's my point.
That's the only point I
don't know why you're here.
I don't know what you mean.
We're not debating.
Okay, well,
like a debate's like this. Donald Trump did a backflip, and here's why it was wrong. Well, actually, backflips have been long protected. I'm saying Donald Trump was accused of these specific things, and you say, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, then we're not having a debate.
No.
You're just saying I read in the news Trump was convicted, and I say, okay.
Okay, well.
It's important to drill down because then you can compare it to other similar situations and whether people have been charged by that. And then that's the way that you can suss out whether it was lawfare or something unusual.
Indeed, but even outside of that, it's that when an individual is convicted of a crime, it is prudent of a society to analyze whether or not this is a legitimate use of the judiciary, of our legal system.
So you don't like people that accuse other people of things.
And the point I'm making is, I don't believe law dictates morality. I don't believe just because something is legal.
I think I literally said that earlier.
It is correct. And I don't blindly trust when an authority figure says, trust me, this person's bad. That's why I oppose the death penalty, because there's going to be some authority figure says, you don't need the facts of the case, kill this man. I'm going to say no. So in the issue of Donald Trump in New York, he was not actually legitimately charged under any crime, and it's unprecedented in U.S. history. Trump was charged under 34 counts of misdemeanor, falsification of business records with no underlying crime. They then said, okay, I guess, upgrade it to a felony. Everybody said, well, hold on a minute. This is why it's currently in appeal, because Trump was never actually charged with the underlying crime required for an aggravated charge. It's never happened before.
I don't think that's true. I think the falsification of the business record is the misdemeanor, but in order to hit the statute of limitations, they had to get the enhancement. I don't even think that's descriptively true. He was charged with falsifying a business record, which is a misdemeanor, but then the enhancement is what makes it a felony. That's why it was controversial, because felonies have a longer statute of limitations. I don't even think Tim knows how the case is operating.
So let's just say you're 100% right, and
which he's not, which is why, by the way, Brian Shapiro needs to debate in Twitch and YouTube politics. He would get super sharp, super quick.
100% wrong. Let's just assume that for a moment. I'm not quite sure, but let's just assume that for a moment. I was talking also about the moralities of the case, and you were asking me about E. Jean Carroll. And while I don't want to go into the details of that case, I wasn't there.
You don't know either.
Okay, but he was.
I do.
Again, it goes back to what I said earlier.
What was he accused of doing?
He was found.
He was accused of digitally penetrating a woman in a changing room 30 years ago.
Liable for sexual.
What does that mean? What
Judge
did he do?
Characterized it as rape, as penetrating her with his fingers. A jury found that he was liable. Now, I wasn't there.
And not just that, add in the Access Hollywood tape, Tim. How do you explain that? How do you go from he likely digitally penetrated this woman to him saying that he's done it, that you can do whatever you want when you're rich or powerful? How do you not like take those two dots and connect them? That's what's crazy to me. That's where the Trump sweeping gets absolutely insane to me. How do you not watch like the Access Hollywood tape and then watch a woman say he did what he said in the Access Hollywood tape, and then have like 40 other accusers, and then have that girl who said that she was a part of the Epstein sex trafficking ring? How do you not go, yeah, this probably happened? I really don't understand it.
You weren't there, but here's what I do know.
What year did it take place?
I don't recall. It was many years ago, but
30 years ago.
But the point is, he has a track record with how he has treated women from a moral standpoint.
How was it? Let me ask you this question. How was it that E. Jean Carroll was able to bring a case 30 years after the fact?
You're asking me how?
It's very important to the case.
Okay, well,
it's actually a key component.
So by your argument, Bill Cosby's never raped anybody before.
I asked you a question.
And by your logic, because it was 30 years ago, it couldn't have happened. Why are you asking me that?
You're changing the subject again.
No, you're asking me 30 years.
No, he's not.
I think the issue is you're so ignorant on these issues.
I don't think I'm ignorant at all. I think you're.
So then, what was the pretext?
You're unwilling to put any responsibility on Donald Trump for anything.
What was the pretext? Trump is wrong. Trump is bad. We've already agreed. He's done
wrong
bad
and
things.
bad and illegal are different things.
So and this is a liability case, not a legality case, not a criminal case.
Sure.
So the pretext by which the case came about is extremely important in law, and I'm asking you the details because you don't know. I presume you don't know, and that's why you hold this position.
Okay. All I said to you, and you want to quiz me on these cases, but I
don't know what you're talking about.
Tim, is he a liable sexual abuser? Yes or no?
No.
So he's not a felon. He's not a liable sexual abuser.
Oh, well, actually, let me clarify. If I get 3 guys to come in here with badges on and they say you're a rapist, are you a rapist?
If I'm found liable in a court of law, I could be liable for sexual abuse.
I mean, I'm
pretty sure if 3 cops came in here and it was presented in a courtroom, my attorneys would defend me. And
what if I paid off a judge?
Oh, so you're saying Trump paid off, or I'm sorry,
I'm not.
Carroll paid. Okay.
I'm asking you a question to understand your moral worldview.
That's not a non sequitur.
I'm asking you a question to determine what your moral worldview is.
Sure.
You keep changing the subject and interrupting when I ask these questions.
Damn, I'm actually really hating this because I think that Brian Shapiro destroys Tim Pool's Trump defense. Dude, I hope he does at some point, man, because the momentum, the stupid people are just eating this shit up. Stupid people are like, you came in here, you can't even argue the specifics of the case, and yet you insist that Donald Trump is a bad guy. Orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. Ha 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 ha. Like, I guarantee you that's what the chat is. So the fact that, like, you don't know the specifics of the case. Now, does that actually change the facts of the matter? Absolutely not. It doesn't change the facts of the matter whatsoever. But is Tim probably winning with 80 IQ dipshits because they don't understand argumentation or they don't understand the facts of the matter? Absolutely. So
apologies. Go ahead.
If a judge is bribed and finds you liable of rape, are you a rapist?
If it's proven that a judge has been bribed, then obviously you would probably win on appeal, right?
What if the judge brought the case illegally?
Is that right? Is that fair?
Well, perhaps you would. I mean, the question was, would you be a rapist? Would you consider a person to be a rapist if a judge was paid off to do it?
Not if it's proven that a judge was paid off.
But we don't know.
Was the judge paid off?
In this instance, we don't know. I'm just asking you, in a circumstance where a judge it's not a legitimate ruling.
If it's
I'm just asking questions, bro.
Ruling itself
I'm answering your
lacks
question.
merit.
I'm answering your question. If it's proven, obviously, that if a judge is paid off, then obviously.
What if a judge brought the case illicitly, meaning it wasn't actually able to be brought into a court, but he did anyway?
Okay, so being bribed and your opinion of being illicitly brought are two completely different things.
So I'm asking these questions. If a judge brought forth a case, or I should say, a case was brought to a judge that did not have legal merit to be entered into court of law, and we're doing it anyway, and then said, you're a rapist, is that legitimate?
I know where you're going with this.
Where am I going?
And well, you're making the case that that's what happened here in the E. Jean Carroll case.
I'm trying to suss out your worldview on when do you determine that an act of the judiciary is not actually legal?
If that's proven, if it could be proven that way.
So the court. So
yep.
You
asked me the judge question. I gave you my best.
Point of this is, if your argument is the very blanket, a guy said a thing, we can certainly agree a guy said a thing. If the question is, did Trump in a legitimate setting face these claims and convictions? The answer is no. And I can break it all down fact by fact, detail by detail. Specifically with the E. Jean Carroll case, there's numerous factors as to why this is meritless. Notably, that the New York State legislature passed, it might have been, I think it was the state, passed a law allowing claims beyond the statute of limitations for a period of 1 year to be brought up for civil action. The only person who picked it up was E. Jean Carroll, and then it disappeared. This is lawfare. Additionally, E. Jean Carroll's story.
Sorry. So his argument, I actually Googled it while he was saying, so the New York State legislature said that you can bring up sexual abuse allegations greater than the statute of limitations for this grace period. And the intent of the law is that the statute of limitations and the social and cultural bias that had prevented people to go after their, what would you call it? Their predators, I suppose. Their victimizers. There was a cultural stigma, obviously, to going after people like that. And so the whole motivation of the law was to try to give people an opportunity to seek justice for things beyond the statute of limitations. Tim is, in my opinion, implying that the only reason why this law was created was so the New York State could go after Donald Trump. That's the implication that I just heard.
Made literally no sense. She claimed to have been wearing clothes that didn't exist. She claimed to have access to rooms that she did not have access to. And Trump, the most famous man in New York, instead of going into his hotel across the street from the Bergdorf Goodman, went into a crowded building where there was no one for this one period for no reason. None of it made sense. And we can sit here and say, well, that story is certainly strange, but why did she claim to have clothes that didn't come? Why was she claiming to be wearing clothes that didn't even exist at the time? A specific dress that wasn't released until years later. More importantly, she didn't have a key to that room, nor did Trump. And she also said the Bergdorf Goodman, one of the busiest stores in New York, had no people in it. So you then say, I find that all to be credible. Okay. And the New York State legislature passed a law allowing her to bring it.
I never said that.
So why would you agree with this stuff?
The only thing that
I mean, that would be up to the jury, don't you think, Tim? Do you think like a jury of peers would be more likely to evaluate the evidence than maybe you, the fucking podcaster?
I said, Tim, was that he is a liable sexual abuser. Now, we could have disagreements on whether you think it's credible or not. I asked you the question very simply.
And here's my worldview on government.
Dude, I'm sorry, guys. I hate to say this. For people who like Trump, Tim's winning. This thing is like improperly titled. So unless Brian pulls a dunk out here in the last like 5 minutes, I'm just telling you, the Trumpanzees, they think Tim just got like an epic dunk.
I think when government makes claims, they have to prove it. And if they can't, I wouldn't do it. So when I see a guy who's clearly innocent on death row, I don't call him a murderer. I say they have cheated an innocent man. I call him an innocent man.
Once again, a clearly innocent man. So Donald Trump was boys with Jeffrey Epstein through the 80s, 90s, and thousands. There's a female victim who was 14 at the time and was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. She has a graphic description of her having consensual oral sex and hand job sex with Donald Trump. She also has a graphic story of her being raped by Donald Trump. In reference to the Jeffrey Epstein case, there are 40 sworn written affidavits by victims of Jeffrey Epstein that have not been released that probably implicate Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and Donald Trump in sexually illegal activity. In 2003, there was a birthday book that was a part of the Jeffrey Epstein estate that had a picture of Jeffrey Epstein grooming underage women. It was a cartoon drawing that was a part of the book, basically showing that everybody knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And then there was a picture of Donald Trump writing a poem about enigmas to Donald Trump, to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. This was after Donald Trump had already recruited Virginia Giuffre, who was 16 years old at the time, who worked at Mar-a-Lago as a masseur, I believe. And Jeffrey Epstein had recruited her to be a masseur for him and then started sex trafficking her to Prince Andrew, among others. And Donald Trump knew about this and didn't swear Jeffrey Epstein off until criminal charges were brought. Then add in the Access Hollywood tape, and it's like, you add in all those videos of him saying like, oh yeah, I used to sneak into the teenage girls' changing room so I could steal a peek. Add in the videos of the teenage girls partying after they did their model shoots throughout the day, and boom, like what the fuck are we talking about, man? Like the amount of charity that Tim extends to Donald Trump is insane. I can only think that it's like delusion. It's either like self-delusion or grifting. There's no other explanation. Absolutely fucking insane. And I really wish Brian had a command of the facts so he could actually stomp Tim right now. It's actually kind of disappointing that he doesn't have a stronger command of the facts. Maybe he'll pull out a dunk towards the end, but I'm just telling you, MAGA people, Tim Pool's audience, they're eating this shit up. They think Tim is dominating.
When
Well,
Kamala
the Parkland
Harris,
Five, right? They're innocent.
we're not arguing the Parkland Five.
Okay.
My point is when
Central Park 5.
you have people on death row, I oppose the death penalty, who are innocent, I won't call them a murderer. If the state falsifies evidence, and they've done this on numerous occasions to imprison innocent people, the state is the criminal. The prosecutors are the criminals.
I think here's where
and
our
they need to be
disagreement-
in prison.
Tim, sorry to interrupt. I think this is where our disagreement is. While we
Sacred Snow says, so you have to know the fine details of all of Trump's misdeeds despite the flood the zone tactic. I'm not saying you need to in order to be factually correct. I'm saying in order to be rhetorically effective. I'm saying that Brian, from an outside perspective, looks like he is accusing Donald Trump of being guilty of various crimes, but he does not know the evidence that supports that narrative. And so it looks like Tim has evaluated the evidence more aggressively and therefore has a better command of the subject matter. And so if you're ignorant of the case, then you're going to presume that Tim knows more and knows more of what he's talking about if you don't follow these details. That's what I'm saying. It's not about facts of the matter. I think facts of the matter are on Brian's side. I think the rhetoric is on Tim's side, which is unfortunate.
have a lot of different disagreements on, Donald Trump, whether he's a criminal or not. The fact of the matter still stands. He was found liable for sex. Doesn't mean
I'll
that
put it like
it's
this.
credible,
Here's-
Tim.
here's-
I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying here.
No. I clarified that point. The difference between us is you trust government, I don't.
I don't trust government 100%.
But you trust them enough to convict people.
Here's what I
don't.
Here's what I will say, Tim. Okay,
And that's fine.
here's what I will say, Tim. And then I'm sure you want to move on to some other stuff, but I don't always trust government. All I'm simply saying is I gave you my moral.
Yeah, government
spiel.
said so, and you agree.
Well, it's not just about government. It's about his behavior. It's about the things he says. It's about the things he does. I think it's an embarrassment.
I think you're
Agreed. I think you have TDS. Her.
emotionally offended by Trump as a character, so you're willing to entertain illicit government action because you don't like the man.
No, I think there's a lot of reasons why I don't like Donald Trump. There's a policy standpoint of it, and then there's the moral standpoint of it.
What other policies don't you?
Atrocious human being.
I'm going to 1.25.
Okay, an atrocious human being. I think maybe we agree on that. I don't know.
This is the distinction.
You agree he's a really bad guy.
No, I wouldn't say that.
He's not a bad guy.
You said
Decent guy.
you've just changed.
Good father, good husband.
Oh, he's a great father.
Having unprotected sex with a porn star 2 weeks after Barron is born, that you think that's a good father?
I don't think a single action can define a man who's got great kids who have been very successful. I think people are neither absolutely good or absolutely evil. There's varying degrees of whether someone could be good, bad, or otherwise. And Donald Trump has certainly done things that knock him down a peg or two and bring him down to the lower tier, but he's done a pretty good job with his family, indeed. I mean, look at the success they have. His kids.
Are they all fucking Eric and Donald Trump Jr. fucking suck. And Barron has hella autism. Ivanka is probably the one person that I actually have a modicum of respect for because she actually seems to be intelligent. And Jared Kushner, I actually like, despite the corruption that he's engaged in. Like, I think the Abraham Accords were probably pretty well negotiated. Okay, let's not get triggered. That's okay. Fucking woof.
Kids are well-adjusted,
Three
successful
different
individuals.
lives, yeah.
C'est la vie, I suppose.
Even Hillary Clinton on the debate stage said he's a good father.
This weird, like puritanical argument doesn't work on me. I'm not a conservative.
I didn't say you were.
Right. So when you say
He's a
Donald
really
Trump
bad
banged
guy.
a lot of people, I'll be like, certainly
You're MAGA though.
did.
I just
That's
don't
the
think
narrative.
he's a very good person.
That's the narrative context of all this, right? Because the big thing the Dems blamed Hillary's loss on in 2016 was that she was accused of being a felon, and they thought that that made a big difference, and it did make a difference. But they thought that if they could throw that felon label onto Trump, then there was an opportunity to get that to do the same thing that happened to Hillary. But they don't realize there were a lot more intangibles under that besides the felony accusation, which is why Trump was able to spin it as outlaw. And also the law is important. I think I agree, like the law is important, which is why it's so important that we like really suss out whether there's political lawfare, because that undermines the whole trust in the entire legal system, and then you just have chaos.
I would love to see these guys talk about the fake elector scheme. I would love for them to see what's that guy? It's the something memo related to the fake elector memo. It's named after the lawyer memo. The Eastman, is it the Eastman memo? Eastman memos. Under Eastman schemes, Pence would have declared Trump the winner. Yeah, I would love to see these guys break this down. I really would. But they're either delusional or they're lying, and I don't know which one, and I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm not going to pretend to know. Fuck them. Fuck them is what I say. Have a great day. Bye for now.